Well, we will find out. Commission meeting of July 7th to order. Please note for the record that all commissioners are present either by telephone or in person. First order of business is the approval of the minutes. We have two sets. Well, I'm going to start it over again. Just some housekeeping things for individuals that are participating by phone. Please identify yourself prior to speaking. Speak loudly. Please do not use the speaker function on your phone. And then please mute your phone unless you're speaking, and once you are done speaking, mute it again. So any questions on any of that? Hearing none, the first order then of business would be the approval of the minutes, and we have two sets. One is from June 16th, which is the regular Grand Forks County Commission meeting, and then one from June 23rd, which was the County Board of Equalization. And so may I have a motion to approve the June 16th, 2020 Commission meeting minutes?
So moved.
I have a motion to approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. The next one is the County Board of Equalization from June 23rd. Do I have a motion on that?
So moved, Tom.
Thank you. And do I have a second?
Second, Dave.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay. Motion carried. Next order is the approval of the order of the agenda.
I would like to make an addition to the agenda, please.
All right, and you're going to add Dean Dahl.
Dean Dahl on 9B.
Okay, 9B. Okay.
Who's the other?
We're adding Dean Dahl at 9B or 9.5. Anything else for the agenda? So we have a motion then to add Dean. Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to add Dean Dahl, 9B. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item is approval of the consent agenda, and you all have received copies of the bills, employee status changes, overtime, game of chance permit from the Grand Forks Fraternal Order of Police, and then the May financial report. Is there anything that you would like pulled for further discussion? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Do I have a second?
Second, Tom. I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, opposed? Motion carried. The next item is special event permit, and Sarah Kallick, are you on the phone?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, you have the floor.
Okay, well, thanks for letting me speak today. My sisters and I own Good Friends, which is a bar and a restaurant in Larimore, and we do a lot of weddings and things. Have been asked to provide the alcohol for a wedding that's just, it's about 2 to 3 miles out of town on a private farm, and so I guess I filled out the forms, and I think that there might be some questions that I need to answer.
Yes, there typically are. Commissioners, do you have questions? If not, I do. As far as security, will there be security at that function?
You know, I guess honestly, this is our first go around learning these things. We inherited the restaurant after our dad passed away, so we're not sure if that's something we need to provide, then we can do that.
Typically, that's what we request, is that you have security on the grounds.
Okay.
And then, as far as do you also provide the bartenders?
Yes, there are, and they have all been certified with the Safe Serve classes. They have all that coursework done.
Yeah, it's a wedding.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I do have a question. This is Cindy Peach.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, when you're serving at this function, are you going to be following your hours that you have at the bar?
Yes, it will not go past our bar hours.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Thank you.
Do you have any idea, excuse me, how many people might be at this function?
You know, I guess honestly with the virus, it's a little bit hard to say. I'm not sure at this point. They haven't gotten any numbers to us yet. They still have a few weeks to get that back to us. So I know that they'll be following within the guidelines, whatever they are at that point.
They will be following the guidelines?
Yes, yeah. I just know that we're kind of keeping an eye on it and just knowing that we'll have to pay attention to that one when it gets closer to it.
Okay, all right, thank you. Commissioners, any other questions out there?
I have one. Sheriff Snyder, have you been notified about this at all?
Commissioner Ross, members of the commission, I did receive the packet of information regarding the commission meeting that was being held today. I did see the application, I reviewed it, and don't have any concerns after reviewing the packet. I have not been directly contacted by anybody outside of that, but that's not normal procedure, I don't believe either, so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions, commissioners? Hearing none, do I have a motion on the application for special event permit alcohol beverage license request?
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
yes, I would move approval of this motion.
Okay, and do we have a second? Do we have a second?
I'll second it, Dave.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please? Oh, we have a motion and a second. Oh, dear. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Excuse me. Okay, the next, thank you, Sarah, we appreciate it.
Thank you very much for your time.
Yep, take care. Next item is Michaela from NDSU. Are you on the phone, Michaela?
Yes, I am.
Okay, what do you have for us today?
I am looking for permission to host horse workouts out at the fairground on the next following 5 Tuesdays for the 4-Hers. I sent you guys a letter stating what we would do to help prevent COVID. And I was just kind of hoping for approval.
Okay. Kari, have you visited with Michaela on this?
Commissioner Knopf, yes, I have.
Okay.
Both Michaela and Carrie, we've talked about this, and we did loop in Dustin from Public Health.
All right, thank you. So, commissioners, do you have any questions of Michaela? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
I so move the approval.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the request to host the horse workouts for 4-Hers on the fairgrounds. Do I have a second? Do I have a second?
Yes, I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Good luck, Michaela.
Thank you.
Yeah, take care.
You too.
Next item is public health. And do we have Ms. Swanson on the phone?
Good
She's right
afternoon,
here.
members, county commissioners. This is Debbie Swanson. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Thank you for putting up the presentation. I sent it to you via email, I believe yesterday or early this morning. And unfortunately, I didn't have an opportunity to update it because I was in meetings all day today and had a number of media requests. So if you look at the second page of that presentation where it has the North Dakota overview of COVID testing, those numbers are from yesterday. And today's numbers are higher. The new daily total is 52 instead of 33, with 1,989 daily total new cases or new tests. So the numbers are down a little bit in terms of the total tests reflective of the holiday weekend. However, you can see that there still are cases being reported. Unfortunately, the saddest piece is that we now have 84 deaths instead of 80 deaths, and all of those other numbers have been adjusted. We had 3 new cases in Grand Forks County, which is the same number that we reported yesterday. If you go to the next page of this presentation, the graph here at the very bottom there has been updated slightly, but the trajectory is still on an upward trend. I noted yesterday when I put together data, we are basically at the same place for new cases as we were on April 24th and May 25th or 26th. So we're really back, we've really gone backwards in terms of flattening the curve. We are on an upward trajectory, which is mirrors what's happening across the nation. If you go to the next slide, these numbers also, I apologize, have not been updated, but total positive tests basically in Grand Forks County would be 409. So I won't go through all of that information, but go on to the next page, which is a really interesting curve that we were able to pull from our, it's called Dynamic system. This is the software that's used for our contact tracing. And you can see there we have total cases, the new cases are at the top in the red. And then that trend curve is really our case per 100,000. So we've had a couple of peaks there. It begins with May 15th, and this was through July 4th. I had one of our contact tracers create this for us, just mainly to show you the trend that we had a really nice lull there at the very beginning of June with not a lot of new cases. We were coming off of a lot of really robust restart activities that were very cautious, and now as people are opening up more, moving about a bit more freely, there's more special events that are happening, we are seeing an increase in cases. Interestingly, today we had a meeting with the state health officer for North Dakota and the governor's office, and they noted anecdotally that the age of active cases and new cases has decreased by about 10 years. So while we were currently testing a lot of long-term care and a lot of adults, we're now testing more young people, teenagers and young adults, and so it's really brought the average age down quite a bit. And that is certainly what's happening in Minnesota right now too, with a couple of their large communities like Edina noticing a huge uptick in young adult cases. If you go to the next page, once again, I feel like I'm apologizing for the data lag here, but that is our situation. I think mainly I just want to point out here that community spread still tends to be our largest area where we are finding people are contracting this virus. They don't know where they've become infected, they can't identify any close contacts or any household contacts. There hasn't been any confirmed travel, although we're starting to see a little bit of that change now, and a number are still under investigation, but clearly community spread is where things are at right now. If you go to the next slide, then I just wanted to give you an update of all that Grand Forks Public Health has been doing. I know many of you are pretty aware of it. We've worked really closely with Kari Gals, your county emergency manager, every step of the way. But sadly, Kari's been dealing with flooding and weather and all kinds of other interesting things. So she's let us take the lead on pandemic quite a bit the last few weeks, as her attention has been focused on other emergencies, especially that have been hard hitting in Grand Forks County. So We've done a lot of this work in concert with her, but now are tending to do more leading of it than the unified command structure that we previously had. But we formed a testing strategy group with all of our partners. We are aware that there's static diagnostic testing that's available through All Truth Spectra Health, and they have sites in both Grand Forks and Larimore, and then Northwood Deaconess. UND is listed there, but their testing strategy is just now beginning, and it seems to kind of be shifting a little bit. We thought most of it was going to be conducted by UND, but now they've made a request to the state to have regular large mass testing events that we will be asked to help participate in and set up. Or we know that while we have the National Guard, we'd like to utilize their resources to do that, but it's going to be a really heavy lift. Our targeted testing continues in all long-term care, group homes, congregate living settings, homeless shelter, and then also the Grand Forks County Correctional Center. And the inmates and staff have been tested twice there, and results have been really good. So we're very grateful for that. And then we also participated in a serology testing event that was by invitation only, and it was conducted in a workplace, and individuals were invited to attend if they had had a previous positive test. And the State Health Department's using that to validate the various ways that they test for antibodies. You've heard about antibody testing. And just yesterday, a large paper came out in the Lancet that indicates in Spain, where they have very large outbreak, a lot of people hospitalized. They did a random sampling of a huge percentage of residents of a number of communities, and they're finding that only about 5% of people are showing antibodies. And so that means we have a long, long ways to go to what's called herd immunity, or protecting our population, with only 5% of people potentially having some protection until we get a vaccine. If you go to the next page, continuing on with our response, as you know, we did a number of large testing events on April 16th, April 23rd, May 14th, June 23rd at UND, and June 30th at the Alaris Center. And the last two were large groups of 1,000 individuals. And then on July 15th, we are planning to do one at the Alaris Center, 1,400. These were all and are all National Guard supported events. You can see all of our partners there. And Grand Forks County emergency managers getting to be a pro at helping us with logistics for all of these. The next slide just shows some of the setup. At UND, we had a walk-up location. This is one of our staff members, Chantal Vasquez, who's testing President Armacost at the UND event, where they had a walk-up tent, which really helped with students that didn't drive up to that event. And then on the right lower corner was our last testing event at the Alaris Center. And you can see we had 4 lines throughout both parking lots, all the way down the roadway behind Alaris, and all the way to the north of the Alaris Center and Canada Inn and out to 42nd. So unfortunately, the wait was pretty long, but once people were electronically registered and got to the front of the line, it went pretty quickly. We recognize that mass testing, while it's very popular, may not be reaching all of our target audiences. So I think we may begin to see a little bit different strategy with those large testing events. If you go to the next slide, some additional activities that we've been doing from the very beginning was the convening of our pandemic planning community partners group. We have really good attendance at those meetings, and they're now held every other week using our life-size virtual meeting room. And then we started a local joint information center with all of the public information officers from the large entities and others that join us to talk about social media messaging and coordination and signage. News conferences haven't been very prevalent lately. The mayor has stopped. There's a new mayor, and the news conferences haven't been initiated again. But we're trying to use other venues for getting information out. And then you can see all of our public health communication activities. And if you go to the next slide, thank you for advancing for me. I wanted to quantify some of the things that the health department has done, just to give you a sense of how busy it's been. And there you can see all the general activities that we've completed. We have a lot more detail about our social media that I didn't include, but there you can see we've logged a lot of responses to the North Dakota restart, and then we've also had a lot of just phone calls that have been logged. Most of them have been by phone, some have been by email, but I would say this is incredibly underreported because now that restaurants are open, they tend to know who their inspector is and they go directly to them and ask a question, and it may not get logged in there. Or if it's a swimming pool question, it might go directly to that individual inspecting swimming pools. And I can honestly say at the end of the day, I rarely get time to log all the requests that I get in a day, which can number in the 20 or 30 per day. So it's pretty underreported, but you can see a lot of it represents questions by community members. If you go to the next slide, please, there's just an example of one of our current social media messages. We're really trying to promote the physical distancing and personal responsibility that everybody has, not only to protect themselves, but to protect those around them. And we're highly encouraging the use of face coverings in public, especially when physical distancing isn't possible. Cloth face masks have been reported to be very useful in stopping transmission in communities where they're applied fairly robustly, if I could say that. And so that's been our current message that we're trying to really promote, is that it allows businesses to open safely if the customers and the workforce are all wearing masks. It prevents that transmission from one person to another. Unlike in healthcare, where mask usage is protecting that healthcare worker and protecting them from spreading disease to other patients, in the community, it's a sign of respect to protect others. If you go to the next slide, there's a little bit of information about our contact tracing efforts. In April, when we had a large volume of cases, we had a staff of 15 plus others in the state that were helping with all of our contact tracing efforts. That's been reduced to 4 now of our staff, but it's augmented, and I will show you that in the next slide. But currently our personnel are following 8 positive cases with 141 recovered and 63 close contacts with 355 released from quarantine. That information, though, doesn't reflect the total effort that has occurred. So if you go to the next slide, you can see we're getting a lot of assistance from our regional partners, other local health departments in our region that either take our cases or our close contacts and make contact with them every single day to find out how they're doing. We also have used Spectra Health, UND Student Health Services, and the MPH students at NDSU and UND to help with this. And in fact, UND MPH students have their own case manager who oversees kind of a group of students that are all doing it, and that person provides technical assistance and expertise to that whole cohort of students helping us do this. So we've really replicated our contact tracing program within that program, and it's been highly successful. As I mentioned before, we have this dynamics database that's been in place since May 15th. That was state initiated, and it's resulted in some opportunities to conduct investigations across jurisdictions. And in fact, this past weekend, it was really helpful in identifying a closely connected social group that all had Grand Forks addresses, but they were studying or working in other communities and had contact with one another, and it had been missed in a previous investigation because of one of our contact tracers recognizing it in the dynamic system. He was able to piece together some additional close contacts. So now we have more people in quarantine and being tested. And the other thing that we are noticing too is that with more activity among the general population, with every contact investigation that we do, they have so whereas before, when people were staying home or studying online, they might have had 3 to 5 close contacts, and now it's not uncommon for them to have 10 to 20 close contacts. Those are people that they're socializing with or have been around in some way, shape, or form, family reunion or something. The next slide describes our quarantine and isolation. You've heard us talk about this before. Grand Forks set it up first in the state, then the State Department of Human Services took it on for a while, but they are now handing it back to us. And so we'll be working with our local partners to ascertain how we can sustain this. We have a pretty good system in place. It's just the management overall of once we place individuals in a hotel, there needs to be things like security and some management of that effort. We served approximately 25 people. Most of them were individuals who were homeless, either waiting for test results or were quarantined because of exposure. So their stay varied from 2 to 14 days. And they were provided all those services that are listed, and then there are all of our local partners that have helped us. If you go to the next slide, just a little bit about North Dakota and Grand Forks Smart Restart. A lot of this work has been done by both our communications team as well as our environmental health staff, and they did email all licensed establishments within the city of Grand Forks. Grand Forks County licensed establishments like bars and restaurants are inspected by the state. So I'm sure that they were provided this information, but we honestly will provide assistance to anybody that contacts us. And then we did some intentional outreach on the guidance. I would say this is a huge amount of what we're doing right now is just fielding calls about things like special events or wedding dances or places. The senior center called today and wanted to know how they can safely open up. So that's a huge part of what we're doing is just addressing those individual requests. And then as things began, more entities submitted requests to us for personal protective equipment fit testing, like dental offices and group homes. And so we had staff that helped with that. We also received some assistance from the state to bring someone from Fargo up here to help with some of that fit testing, especially for any like ambulance services or EMS services that didn't have a current fit testing. And then the next slide, as you know, Dustin Johnson from our office has been helping with the county office building reopening plans. We're very grateful to the Grand Forks County Commission for taking things as cautiously as you have. I think it's really helped people to thoroughly assess our workplaces and understand how we can do this safely. And then we have resumed a lot of our public health activities that were either placed on hold. Some of the first ones there were ones that we never discontinued doing, like TB medications and obviously jail nursing home visits, harm reduction services. But then as spring approached and as things have been opening up more, we've had requests for septic plan review, nuisances, pool and restaurant inspections, and then mosquito control in the city of Grand Forks, obviously. Our withdrawal management center opened yesterday, and so far so good. One of our concerns is it's very small and very self-contained, and so instead of 9 clients on any given day, we can only accept 3 to safely ensure that we have social distancing for both the staff and the clients. And then, as you know, we're planning for the future with vaccination services. I heard today on a national webinar that it's very likely that we won't see vaccine till after the first of the year. So we're expecting a really busy fall with trying to determine if people have influenza or if they have COVID. And so we're highly recommending seasonal flu. We greatly appreciate that Grand Forks County has really strong policies about seasonal flu vaccination for employees because it will keep them healthy, and at least we can hopefully rule out flu or keep it to be a milder disease. And then I think the last slide that I have content on is just what we're currently working on. We have a recruitment effort for enhancing our public health workforce. We received our CARES funding notification, and that has gone through all the processes internally. And so now we will be hiring public health nurses and public health program specialists to do all those activities that are listed there. We are having difficulty recruiting public health nurses. Our salaries are not competitive Currently, we offer about $27 an hour for a new public health nurse, and the state health department has been employing nurses who are furloughed from their jobs to do testing for $47 an hour plus health insurance. So we're at a distinct disadvantage recruiting in this environment, but we're going to remain hopeful and be creative and probably offer a lot of part-time work for people who maybe want extra hours. And then we do have a really good response to our public health program specialists, and most of those applicants are recent graduates of the MPH programs or recent graduates of public health programs and undergraduate programs. So we're really hopeful that we'll have a good number of those individuals that we can employ. We might have to get creative amongst there as well. And I think that's all I have to say. The last few slides just include resources that I provided before, and then a final slide on one of our social media posts, once again promoting masks and how they protect other individuals. And I'll be happy to answer any questions, Madam Chair or members of the commission that you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Swanson, for the information, and especially thank you for providing specifics just for Grand Forks County, that, where I can see the curve that we, where we are rather than just looking at the state. And so appreciate the effort that was put into that, and always, as always, what you and your staff are doing for our community. So commissioners, do you have any questions of Ms. Swanson?
This is Tom.
Yes, Tom?
Just a couple of comments. I love all the data and the material that's presented by Ms. Swanson. It really makes it easier to understand the problem that we're facing. It doesn't help with solutions, I guess, but it really helps for us to focus on what we probably need to do. One comment is that concerns me that I always look at your positivity rate, and that seems to be going up off and on quite a bit higher than it was 2 weeks ago. So it's not only just the testing, but we're getting more positive tests, which is very concerning also. And a side comment, about 10 days ago on a Sunday, I'm on another board of directors, and we had a problem with a positive test for an employee. And so I was scrambling to get information, and I got a hold of Ms. Swanson, and I just have nothing but compliments for her and her office. I mean, she responded immediately on a Sunday, spent a lot of time with me explaining the problems that we had and how public health was going to deal with them, some of the things that we should have been doing that would have maybe improved our situation, and spent time with another member of our board of directors, and then her office got involved as far as tracing and quarantining, and our group just has the greatest respect for the work that they did with that situation. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else, commissioners?
Yeah, this is Dave. I've got a question. Deborah, you still there?
I am still here, yes. I did turn my camera off, but I'm here.
Okay. You want to start on the film? You mentioned the discussions with the governor's office. Have you gotten any more guidance on activities outdoors?
We actually are asking for that because that's a really big challenge for public health departments across the state. And we asked for it. We also asked that there be strong leadership from the governor's office on a number of things, but special events and outdoor events was one. As an example, the graphic that you have in front of you includes outdoor events, and you can see like large music festivals are at the bottom at the very high risk there. And we have an example of a music festival that is proposing to move from East Grand Forks to Grand Forks, because in Minnesota, they can only have 250 participants, but there's no participant limitation in North Dakota, which makes social distancing challenging. And so we're dealing with that right here in Grand Forks. in other counties, some of those events have been canceled. And we're really looking for more guidance from the governor's office on those types of things. So, there are some outdoor events that can be done fairly safely, but once you start involving things like alcohol, where people's inhibitions might be lessened a little bit, and they might speak loudly to one another in small groups, that provides opportunities for transmission of the virus. If you have contactless food service, for example, then you can reduce your risk as well. But if you have long lines at a concession stand, that's also an opportunity for transmission. So I think it just kind of depends upon the type of environment that you're looking at and what kind of planning they've done. And then keeping crowd sizes somewhat limited, I think, is helpful.
Thank you. I too saw that handout that you had sent on the scale 1 to 10, and thought it was very interesting and helpful. So appreciate that. Any other questions, commissioners?
Thank you, Debbie, for everything from Public Health. It's very much appreciated.
Yes, it is. Thank you, Ms. Swanson. Okay, so the next item then is River City Speedway. Are you on board with us? Are you on the phone?
Hi, Diane. This is Darren. I am here.
Hi, Darren. Welcome.
Hello.
So what do you got for us today?
Well, do you have any questions for me? We've been, I think what we've been doing out there is evolving in a way that is responsible. I know last week we included tidying up of some social distancing indicators, and that seemed to go better. Not that we weren't doing a good job of social distancing before, but those guidance pieces when it comes to some of those needs based on how we're doing things out there. We started with online. We implemented our ticket outlets. We do have, I guess what they refer to them as sneeze shields, and our employees are masked up and they're gloved up. We implemented a lot of technology, so a lot of this is a review based on how we started and how we found our way through to, I guess, present time. And the last time we got together, you guys were kind enough to grant us to operate with what amounts to 2,000 fans in the grandstand. And we've done that. We haven't met that mark. We do have some upcoming specials, and last time the request was for in July if we could open at 50%, which puts us at about a shade over 3,000, 3,100 or something. And then, we know or we want to be part of your agenda. I think Commissioner Ross had indicated monitoring. And so just keep doing our things and keep reminding, try to do our level best, which I believe that we've been doing within, the scope of our plan. And so I guess my request would be for us to be able to operate. We do have a couple of outlaw events. So with consideration for us to operate at 50% capacity for the rest of July, and then of course be on the agenda for August and September, the rest of the season. And I'm here to answer any questions that you might have of us. If I remember anything, and I'll just interject. But I think that, you know, we're doing, like I said, we're doing our level best to try and find our way through, just like all the businesses are in the community. And proud to be able to open up a little wider and operate in a capacity. I know that leaders in our health system, you know, this is an ongoing conversation, and some of the leaderships, I think it was Dr. Johnson was talking about, you know, if you're going to do any outdoor, anything, any kind of activities, the best place to be doing it is outdoors. But having said that, we believe that the fairgrounds and what we do each and every Friday night offers some in the community that want to join us the opportunity to do something a little bit different. For that, we're appreciative. So I'll entertain questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, questions of Darren?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I do have a question.
Yes,
Are you seeing the numbers? Are you getting to the top of the numbers that we allowed for the races, or are they below the numbers that you were anticipating?
I was hopeful that they would be near, but they are below. Typically, I can tell you, like last week for 4th of July, a lot of people, we continue to run race programs during holiday weekends because we need to. But most people have made some plans. I think a lot of people probably did some things outside of Grand Forks during the holiday. So last weekend, we were nowhere near that number. A couple weeks ago, we were near there, but still under. And, you know, that's kind of how we see things rolling forward, I guess, when it comes to some of our special events. We would love to enjoy the ability to have a little more capacity. And, you know, based on appearance out there, there's obviously room for some capacity for us to be able to open a little bit wider. So I was hoping that we'd be bumping up against it, but, you know, we haven't yet. We certainly appreciate a race fan and supporter that comes in to allow us to do our thing, for sure.
Thank you for that information.
Thank you.
Okay, any other commissioners want to comment, have questions?
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Falk.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Everwald, I'm not a Facebook person, but I had a friend show me multiple pictures from Facebook from the racetrack, and I was pretty disappointed in that I had a hard time finding people wearing masks at all. And I know you're apparently giving masks out, but it seems, at least from those photos that I saw, they're not being used. Is that fair to say?
I think that, yeah, I would concur. The mask piece is, I mean, community-wide, depends on when you're accessing business. I guess what I'm seeing personally out there is, you know, people are coming in, their access, you know, I guess if they're using their masks, and some are, so it's not like it's a maskless facility by any means. It's typically in transition, and yes, we are offering and handing out masks to individuals, and I think that's the struggle. No matter what business you're at in East Grand Forks or Grand Forks, is the mask scenario. And that's, you know, I mean, that's difficult. I wish I could snap my fingers and for the need for masks to either go away or for everybody to comply, but that's, you know, the freedoms and the choices that people, I guess, are making. When I access my grocery store, couple times a week, I'll notice there's more people wearing masks than there maybe it was the previous time. Like anybody, I think we're probably all guilty of, to some extent, maybe forgetting a mask, for running an errand. And so that's the challenge, Commissioner Falk, be abundantly honest. We're always encouraged, they're part of our PA notes, blah, blah, blah. So appreciate the question.
Yeah, I realize that it's a challenge, and then I'm not pointing the finger at you, but I think people need to recognize if they want to keep going to the races, we have to keep the numbers down. And if the numbers start climbing, you know, racing may not happen. It's just the way it is. So it's in everybody's best interest if they wear masks and try to keep this virus under control. So I won't go any farther. I think you know that. So thank you.
Appreciate the comments.
Commissioner Mel, this is Dave.
Yes, David?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Hagan. I know that your public address announcer says we recommend you wear masks and so on. If I were you, I would strengthen that message saying, folks, if we aren't wearing masks and staying socially distant, this racing program just may not work. So if your announcer lays it on a little thicker, perhaps people will get it. But you know, given what's going on around the country, even Minnesota's going up now, it could happen here. We don't want it to. So I think I know it's hard to make people do things, and I think they have a right to not wear one, but I guess the person next to them kind of has a right to have everybody wear masks, so because you're looking out for each other. So I think that message just needs to be as strong as you can make it.
Fair enough. I appreciate, you know, the comments and the feedback, and that's what, you know, we're here for, and that's why we're fortunate to be a part of the agenda, because it is an ongoing dialogue within the community, within the county, within the greater Grand Forks area. We can certainly do that. I echoed earlier on some indicators in terms of social distancing seem to be, I guess I noticed it seemed to be a positive move in the right direction, and we will share in the fairgrounds and the racing community and those of us that are joining that very thing, Commissioner Ingen, that we need to do our level best to continue to and or get better at if those of us that have chosen not to, we can do that. We will do that within our messaging and whatnot when it comes to this coming Friday night.
Any other comments?
Thank you.
Any other comments?
This is Commissioner Ross. You know, I've been out there every Friday night at the races, and I've observed people out there. And yes, there are quite a few that are not wearing masks, but at the same time, they're eating or drinking or whatever, and it's a little tough to do all that when you got a mask on. So, not that that's an excuse, but I'm just saying, you know, it's just a constant thing where people are eating or drinking out there. So, I think people are being really responsible out there. I was pretty impressed this last Friday because it was a lot better than the previous ones. So with the social distancing and stuff, but there is distancing going on. I can see groups of people that are like family members or whatever together, but I would like to see their program succeed, and I think if they touch a little more with the PA announcements about wearing the masks and stuff, understanding that, you know, if they don't comply with this, that the races might not be. So anyway, that's all I got to say.
Any other comments?
Thank you.
Okay. Darren, I just want to say a few things, but, you know, been getting a lot of phone calls, emails from people in the community, and everybody wants to see you folks succeed. We all do. You know, but what I hear from them is that when they contact me, and I think some of the other commissioners have gotten these same emails, but they feel bad because they're calling us and they're what they see complaining, but we don't see it as a complaint. But they feel bad because they are serious, lifelong racing fans, but they don't necessarily like what they see. And the things that, you know, and they make comments like, I feel like I'm ratting on the Speedway, and I don't want to do that. And we don't want them to do that either, you know, but we appreciate the communication that we're getting from the public. But the thing that stands out always is no masks and the social distancing. You know, those are the two things, particularly the masks. I've even had people, two, three different people tell me they don't go to the races. They're upset because they don't go to the races, or they don't get to go this year, or don't feel like they can go because they don't feel it's a safe situation. And so I totally respect that, you know, because I too see things on the internet and your Facebook page and what have you. So, I mean, you pull all of those things together. And then, you know, I looked at the contract, or it wasn't a contract, but the plan that was put in place, you know, that was presented and the commission originally approved. And part of that and you had agreed to this, and I think you meaning the Speedway, not you, but that the Speedway indicated that all attendees should bring protective face covering with them to the raceway. These must be worn 100% of the time that you are on the grounds. But yet, nobody's enforcing that. And so, on one hand, you're losing customers that want to be there, and you're making it real difficult for people like us that have to make a decision on health and safety of our community. I mean, it would be so much easier if that could be enforced. You know, and I know Lon, I told you that before, Lon Kasager, he does a good job on your website, you know, saying everybody must wear masks, da, 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 da. And you can have your announcer there saying you need to wear a mask. But unless it's enforced, it's not going to go anywhere. And and until it's enforced, I struggle with approving any more, numbers, increasing the numbers at all. I mean, the other commissioners are going to do what they do, but truthfully, I struggle with that because I think enforcing could be done, you know, but it's going to have to come from you folks. And if they don't want to cooperate, then they have an option. Either you can't be here because you're not wearing a mask. I mean, they have to put public safety first as well. And so that's just where I'm coming from. Like I say, I want to see you succeed. I'd like to see your numbers increase, you know, so that you're successful. You can get the, you know, the purse money, all that other stuff. But that no mask thing is really difficult for me. And that's one of the key things with the COVID-19 and the transmission of that. You know, and one individual had told me that, you know, what they see is maybe 1 in 100 that are wearing masks, you know, and so, you know, I guess I just need to share with you that's a key thing for me. You know that already. Unless something can be done to enforce that, what was in our plan, I can't support. So anyhow, does anybody have any other questions, comments, discussion?
I do, I guess. This
Yes.
is Darren again.
Yes.
Has there been, I sort of see this like, when we say never, that's not always the case. Or there's nobody wearing masks. Because I do my level best to wear a mask. Last Friday night, it would have been difficult to sit there based on the heat. to be wearing a mask the entire time. There are people that are restricted in their breathing capacity, that they're not allowed to wear a mask, or they can't wear a mask, or per doctor's orders in some cases probably.
And in those situations,
There've been a lot of emails and a lot of phone calls. Is the number significant? And I don't mean to address this lightly, but I think, of course, we want 100% compliance. That would be our wish in all cases. I don't know that 100% compliance through this country, through this community, through this county is ever going to happen during this very difficult time. And although I appreciate, each and every one's comments, we are doing our level best. We will continue to, as Commissioner Engen suggested, we will strengthen our message in hopes that we can continue to earn more trust. I believe as likely the only business in the greater Grand Forks community, and correct me if I'm wrong, that is on an agenda and going through this very thing. I think as an organization, we will be better for it. I think through working with the different county departments, we're becoming a better organization. However, it's hard, and I know there's challenges for us, and we continue to work hard as a group and as a community to do, some of the things that you've suggested tonight. But, so that's why I'm asking the question. Has it been 2 people? Has it been 200? Has it been 2,000 people in terms of emails and phone calls? I can tell you the one gentleman that did reach out to the county commission was actually at the races last Friday. And I'm sure because it was so very hot, he chose not to wear a mask, or at times he chose not to wear a mask. And so I just wanted to share that. And I do appreciate, everyone's comments, and hope to be part of this agenda moving forward and finding our way through this and finding, a way to a conclusion of all of this and the pandemic, COVID-19 or what have you. That's it, I guess.
With response to your question about, is it 1 or 2 or 50 or whatever, when we first went in this, commissioners, all of us got a rash, a huge number of people that were supportive and unsupportive of us. We got just as many that are supportive of us and unsupportive of, I'm going to say unsupportive of you. And I don't mean it that way, because they are true. I mean, in their emails, in their conversations, they are true fans, racing fans, and they love going to the races. But they're put in an awkward position right now. And so, and there were some that, just wanted to say, thanks for watching out for us, so there's a lot of those, but I'm not going to say it's about equal. But I think about, like with me, and it's the health and the safety of our community as far as I'm concerned. And I don't think that requiring people to wear masks, as your plan stated, and people have to recognize there's going to be limits sometimes, or we won't have any racing at all. And so, then what? At least be respectful. They need to at least be respectful of somebody else that's there. And that's just common sense. And so, again, until that happens, I personally can't support it.
It's that ongoing dialogue that we're having throughout the country. Diane, I understand that. I know that. I mean, and I'll be the first to admit I'm a sinner, and I've walked into, typically if I go into a big box store, I wear my mask, or a convenience store, but guess what? There have been times when Darren Evelbold has not worn his mask within the business community, within the greater Grand Forks community, within Grand Forks, within East Grand Forks. And my guess is that each and every one of us, unless severely compromised with underlying conditions, have probably found themselves in a situation where either they forgot or something happened where they entered an organization, whether it be a business, a church, a home, where they, unfortunately, they forgot, they chose not to. And for that, you know, I am guilty as I walk through life in this very difficult situation. And we will continue to do our level best. And I appreciate the opportunity and time. And I would hope that we could find a way to open up a little bit more. We'll keep trying to do those things. We'll have this further discussions, Diane, and those that are emphasizing that it is important to us to be able to continue to open slightly more, if so be it. And you know, just reflect on how everybody is likely living their lives. I'm sure everybody, unless they've been severely compromised, have probably found themselves in a situation where they forgot, chose not to, or what have you when it comes to masks.
And I
It's
understand
difficult.
what you're saying.
I appreciate.
I understand what you're saying, and yes, all of us probably have been in that situation. I can say that I have, that I've been some places and I haven't had a mask. It's like I'll run in and, you know, and back out again. But if I know that it's mandated to go into this facility or this store or wherever, that I need to wear a mask, I'm gonna, you know, and, you know, I mean, there's restrictions. You know, and again, you put that in the plan, you agree to it, and so what about that why is now today you don't agree with that? Because you said these must be worn 100% of the time you were on the grounds. That's what we agreed to when we first went into this and started having these discussions. So what happened there? Why should we just ignore that because, well, not everybody wears a mask. They choose not to. I don't understand where you're going with that that's what the statement said. That's what we expected. That's what I expected. I can't speak for the other commissioners, but that's what I expected. You know, and I expected that you would follow through on your end of it, and you know, we would be open to that and try to make you successful. But it's weighted in a lot of different ways. So,
I mean,
okay, but
I guess, you know, I mean, maybe hindsight is we should have never said 100% of the time. I don't know that the other organizations out there are operating or are mandating 100% of the time.
I don't
and
know
so
what other organizations are you talking about, Darren?
The other organizations within that operate within the fairgrounds, I don't know that they're, you know, that they said 100% of the time. I guess we were the first ones out of the gate, Diane.
Yes,
and
I know that.
Because in a lot of cases in a lot of cases, I guess if you're doing everything correctly, it should be follow the leader. But we know in life that everybody is human, and if it was a mistake for us to say 100% of the time, then I will admit it's a mistake to say 100% of the time, because I don't know that there is a place in this community that is compliant. But if they don't have it in their guidelines, I guess, then they don't have to be. That's the difficulty in this. And I appreciate the dialogue that we're having, because it's a respectful dialogue. you know, guidelines to get open and get started, and we appreciate the ability to operate in some capacity. And we will strengthen our message, and we will be asking for more compliance.
Okay, well,
Thank you.
yeah, and thank you, Darren, for your comments as well. So, commissioners, is anyone that wants to make a motion?
Commissioner Knopf, could I ask a question first?
Yes, sir.
Are either public health or emergency services still on the line, and do they have any comments after this discussion?
Kari, are you with us, or Deb?
I am on the line, Commissioner Knopf, but I have not been to the races lately. So I think I'm not going to make a comment. And Debbie had another meeting, so she had to drop off.
Thank you.
Could I ask a question of Commissioner Ross then?
Go ahead.
What percentage do you see wearing masks, or do they take them off, put them on back again? How is it working in your view?
Well, there's a few people wearing masks, but I would say the majority are not. And as I stated earlier, most of those people are eating or drinking, and it's a little tough to do that with a mask on.
Well, sure, at times, but you're not doing that all the time in 2-3 hours. So I'm wondering why they aren't putting them on in between.
I don't know what to tell you. I've been out there and I've been wearing mine, so that's all I know.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion? Would someone like to make a motion, please?
This is Commissioner Ross. I would make a motion that we move the capacity to 3,100 people to be reviewed again in August.
Okay, you've heard the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to move it to 3,100 people attendance. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? David, what were you?
All in favor, somewhat reluctantly, but yes.
Okay, and opposed, so motion carried, 3,100 people. So going forward. Okay, thanks, Darren.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, next item is Sheriff Snyder. Oh, no, Nick. All right, no.
Emergency manager.
Oh.
Sorry.
Oh, okay, I got it. Never mind. Kari, are you there?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
Okay, all right, sorry.
Don't worry,
Well,
don't worry.
every other time you're before River Cities, and then that's part of it, and then we talk to River Cities, so I got confused. So go ahead.
Not a problem. Okay, I'll try to be brief because I know Andy's got quite a bit on his agenda as well. Had some nasty storms come through, 30 June through 5th of July. We have a lot of damage in Emerado, Northwood, and Manville. Red Cross has assessed Emerado for us and done a damage assessment. We are mounting a volunteer effort there at the end of the week. We have already advised them that we will not be sending volunteers into any homes due to the COVID environment. So basically what we're going to be doing is moving trash from the curbs to the trailer and then from the trailer to the dumpsters. So it'll be a very limited volunteer effort. We're scheduling a damage assessment at the end of the week for Manville. The estimates we've gotten from the city of Manville have been all over the map. We've gotten anywhere from 15 homes, and by the end of today, we were up to 90 homes. So we're going to go ahead and have Red Cross go in and do a damage assessment for us and see what kind of impacts we're actually dealing with. We did deliver flood cleanup kits to all 3 of those jurisdictions. The state is collecting damages to see if we qualify for a Stafford declaration. I've been talking with Nick pretty extensively about the road damage. Some of it he can assess and some of it he can't because it's still underwater. The townships have all been alerted that they need to assess their township roads and give that information to us. What I'm asking for tonight is, so Commissioner Knopf, earlier this week or late last week did sign an emergency declaration for us for 7 days, just in case we came across something. So tonight I would ask that the commission do a declaration for the entire county. And we can continue to assess the damages and plug holes where we can. We do have a significant weather system coming through again tonight. That one will be in the dark, so that's going to be a lot of fun. I guess that's my big ask tonight, and that's the majority of my briefing.
Okay, so you've heard Kari's request for chair's signature on the disaster emergency declaration. Anyone have any questions of her? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
Madam Chair,
Yes?
I would like to move forward with a motion on the declaration and your signature.
Okay, and do we have a second?
Second, Tom.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, motion carried. Anything else for us, Kari?
I'd like Nick to, all right, Nick, I'm going to put you right on the spot here. Do you want to give them just a quick overview of what you're seeing out there? I got lost in water the other day, so I'm going to leave it up to you.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Thanks, Kari, and thank you, commissioners, for that declaration. That'll help. Yeah, like Kari said, there's a lot of damage out there, and this is, you know, we've had 4 floods now in 2 years, and this one is probably the most stressful because the spring ones, you can see them coming. You can see the river come up. You got predictions. You got a few days. You know, maybe you got a couple weeks to prepare. This one just hit overnight, and bam, here you go. You got a lot of crop loss out there, and so people are just worked up. I mean, I've been joking around that I have to buy new jeans because I'm tired of my backside getting chewed off. People are mad. They're just downright mad, and they're yelling and screaming at us because none of the culverts are big enough, and it's been stressful for Gerald and I. To be honest with the board, I literally shut my phone off this weekend because I was about ready to just lose it. And don't worry, Gerald was around. We still had guys around that could respond and take care of things that came up. But everybody wants a bigger culvert, and I try to explain to them there's no culvert big enough that's going to handle 10 inches of rain in 3 hours or overnight. But, you know, it's just constant everywhere from that south of Arvilla to Emerado area. And now it's working its way up to Manville and Oslo. And, you know, all these places are getting hit again. I have our preliminary estimates so far. We've been working on them. I have 10 townships that have reported, and we're up to $458,000 worth of damage. And I don't even have, I know there's like Turtle River, Rye, Blooming Township. I know they have damage they haven't reported yet. I estimate with the water board, that number could be huge, but they told me 250,000 worth of damage. And I said, well, what about here and what about here? And they go, oh yeah, we haven't even looked at those or added those spots up yet. So I got them in at 350,000. And just our department, it's hard to say yet what it's going to be. And as far as FEMA goes, you know, if our roads are federal aid, they do not qualify for FEMA. It's a whole different, they call it an ER event, which goes through the DOT and federal highway. And those have much more stringent requirements. But anyway, FEMA does not pay for federal aid routes, which is almost any paved road, and a lot of our gravel. Most of our roads are federal aid routes. But, you know, we're going to, for us to be at 100,000 would be pretty easy. 200,000. And the one good thing is it's not a Red River flood. So our big hitter usually is like County Road 18 between Manville and Oslo, looks like that one's gonna be okay, because that's affected by the red, not the turtle or the Murray River or Hazen, like that. Right now, it's the Hazenbrook, saltwater coulee, and freshwater coulee. That takes that center part of the county, and they're getting hammered. So, you know, 4 floods in a row, big budget cuts, our department's hurt. And that emergency declaration is gonna help out a lot with us to be able to fix up some of our flood damage. So, but if we do not get a FEMA declaration, we're gonna have some bankrupt townships out there, or they're gonna have, it's gonna change things. There'll be some roads that won't be able to be open. It's pretty major damage out there. So I really think we can get to that $1 million threshold, which is the state minimum, so we can at least make a request. But, you know, we made a request for the spring flood, spring of 2020 flood. We haven't heard from them if that's been approved yet or not. And then here we're gonna probably be asking for another one again. So it's getting pretty exhausting with this flood. You know, all we're doing is chasing our tails and trying to fix damage, much less make improvements. It's pretty tough. It would be really beneficial if we could do some culvert projects where we can go down the line and just size them all correctly to modern standards and get them hydraulically correct. But that's impossible with our current budget. So we tell everybody, we just fix what is completely washed out or rusted out. We have just enough money to do that. And if your existing culvert is okay, it's staying. That's our philosophy. So commissioners might start getting more calls about this stuff because people are just getting fed up and they're tired of the answer I give them. And they're tired of the answer the water board gives them, that they don't have any money to do anything. So, and they ask me, who do I report to? And I say the Board of Commissioners. So if you do get more calls, that's probably because of that response from me. So.
You know, and to follow on to what Nick said, people are frustrated. Our office phones have been lit up by really angry people. They wanted to know why they hadn't been told that the Turtle River was going to flood. You know, it's just the frustration of a lot of people were out of town for the weekend, and then they heard from neighbors that their basements were flooded, and then the lift station failed. So now we have contaminated water. So it goes on. And a lot of FEMA doesn't like repetitive loss. I think that's part of why we haven't heard on our spring flood declaration. Nick has been looking hard at where can we do mitigation projects out in the county, and some of that might mean buyouts for some of these repetitive flood issues that we have up in Turtle River and Ferry Township. People are frustrated. We haven't had water like this. Tonight, we're gonna get wind and water. Driving around today, the ditches are high, the rivers are high. If we get significant rainfall, we're gonna be in the soup again by morning. So it is frustrating. People are frustrated. We're all exhausted. But we do what we can do, and we do it every day. So it's, there are no easy answers. We just have to keep trying. So that's the end of my report, Commissioner Knopf.
All right, thank you. Nick, anything else?
Yeah, just one other comment, just for the board's awareness. A couple of months ago, I got together with Sharon Lips, the superintendent up in Walsh County, and we submitted an application to the state to do a mitigation project in that Manville-Ossel area, and then going into Walsh County along the Red River because of the repetitive loss. And in conversations with the State Department of Emergency Services, they recommended us do that. So we put together a little application for a scope of work and seeing, I haven't heard if they'll fund it yet, which they were thinking that's the idea, is they would fund it or mostly fund it. So that would be great if we could, eliminate some of that, that would really help in the spring. But yeah, the key, I mean, this mitigation stuff, it you know, this one was a little bit different. Like usually the Amaretto, Arvilla area, it doesn't have this much significant damage. But as all that water funnels into the Turtle and then it hits Manville and up to Oslo, those same areas it hit just constantly, every time. It's that Turtle River. And because that's where most of our water in the county goes, is through the Turtle. And County Road, like our County Road 5, Federal Aid, that's the worst it's been since I've been here. And it's the worst it's been since Gerald's been here. And he said, it's always the same spots, / we have some new ones again. And it would be really nice to do some kind of mitigation project on there so we fix the problem, are able to handle the floodwaters. But it's super expensive. And I don't know how we get over that hump. And I'm talking about digging bigger ditches, raising roads, putting in bigger bridges, doing all that big infrastructure stuff. So when the floodwater comes, it comes up and we have a place for it to go and a place to handle it. And then it goes down and we're okay. So I don't know how we get over that hump, but yeah, that would be really nice. So.
Okay, well, any other comments, thoughts? Hang in there, you guys. This too will pass. I know it's a difficult time for everyone and doesn't sound like it's over yet, but hopefully the emergency declaration will work out for us and will help somewhat. So and the rest of it, I mean, we don't have the money, and you know, some of those projects are just going to have to be stretched out over a number of years. And so yes, that may mean that maybe some roads will have to stay closed, but all we can do is what we can do. And so, you know, so we'll just have to day by day and see where we go with it. So just hang in there. Okay, Sheriff Snyder.
No,
Dean Dahl. And I even have you in yellow.
Madam Chair and members of the commission, I'm here to, there was questions about Office 365, and I kind of wanted to rehash this. I've got some more information before you do your preliminary budget stuff. I'll start with the bad news. The bad news is initially I said for 60,000 we could have the all-out Office 365, but the problem there is we have too many mailboxes to qualify for that price. I didn't realize that there was a limit on that. So if we really wanted to go to Office 365, it would be, instead of 60,000, it would be $100,000. And because the way they purchase or the way they price it, the more license you have, the more they bill you per license. On the other hand, I have some good news. There is a Office 365 government G1 that is a lot less expensive, and there is a hybrid configuration with that option where we can utilize our current Office Pro 2016, which we currently are using, and in that is your 2016 Outlook. And that 2016 Outlook will be able to attach to the Office 365 with this hybrid configuration. And we can get that in place for $50,000, which is less than what the 60 was. And the other option is we don't have to do any of this stuff. We don't need Office 365. We could put it off and it would cost and go for $0 expense. So those are the three options really that we could go with. No expense, 50,000 for a hybrid, or 100,000 to move. The 100,000 one means everything like Excel, Word, PowerPoint access and public, that's all on part of the Office 365. The hybrid is just using our existing Office programs, but our Outlook will attach to the Office 365 server that's out there on the cloud, basically. And I just wanted to provide that information to you before your preliminary budget, so you can make a decision on that. And like I said, we could wait a year for this. But as you know, the way Microsoft works, eventually they're going to say, we will no longer support Office 2016. And to stay out of trouble, you basically have to buy up to whatever the level they're at. But then at that point, you could go 100% Office 365, or there would probably be some other solution at that point.
Any questions of Mr. Dahl?
Mr. Dave, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Dan, what did you just say about Outlook 2016 won't be supported after some time? What did you say?
Yeah, well, just like any Microsoft product, they will eventually force you to get off of it. If you wanna, you see, you receive updates from Microsoft that most of the updates plug holes that hackers can get into your system. And if you drop back, we could stay in Office 2016 forever, but we would no longer receive updates from Microsoft or their support, etc. And basically it kind of opens up the doors for hackers. We could still be running the accounting on Windows 95 if, we really wanted to, but, as time went on, it went from 95 to 98 and on up to XP, and now we're at Windows 10. It's the latest version. And Microsoft basically forces you to move up at some point if you want to be secure.
And if we don't take it at all, tell me what happens.
Nothing. Right now, Office 2016 is fine. It's Microsoft is maintaining it. They haven't notified anyone yet that they're, at some point they're going to shut it down. So, but if they follow suit, that will occur eventually.
When you're talking eventually, are you talking this year or
Oh no,
next year?
They give you lead time.
Right? Yeah, there's lead time. Yeah. So. And this is just information for once you get to the part of this meeting for the preliminary budget, if you want to make some kind of change. I think right now it probably has 60,000 in there.
61,000.
61,000. Okay. And with this, you could shave off 11,000 for the hybrid situation. So, or just go zero, save 61,000, because we do not have to make this move at this point. Some of the office that will benefit if we did go, of course, is the big things in Office 365 is Teams, and which is kind of like Zoom. But the state of North Dakota will not use Zoom for HIPAA compliant information. So social services, when they meet, they use Team. So, and of course there's SharePoint also, which is another Office 365 benefit. And some of the departments could utilize that probably. So. But we don't have to do it.
Okay, any other questions of Dean? So we'll think about that one then. Thank you for your information.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, next up is Sheriff Snyder.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. I come today with 3 items involving 2 requests. The first one, and they're all good news. See you and smile. The first one is a boat and water safety grant that we apply for every year through the state of North Dakota. We were awarded this grant in the amount of $8,000. It's a 50% match, meaning the sheriff's office will have to provide $4,000 to supplement this grant. We've been budgeting for this for several years, and we do have the $4,000 in the budget. My first request is for Madam Chair's signature for approval of that grant. Any questions on that one?
Any questions? Hearing none, someone want to make a motion?
I would make a motion to, for the chair's signature on the boat and water safety grant.
Okay, we have a motion for chair's signature on the grant. Do I have a second?
Second, Tom.
Okay, any further discussion, questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, motion carried.
Thank you. And just to supplement, I'm sorry I didn't include this for that first grant, but to supplement that and the next 2 grants, they have all been reviewed by the state's attorney, and she saw no issues with them. The second item that I bring before you is a grant through Department of Emergency Services, otherwise known for us as Operation Stone Garden. It is a grant being awarded to Grand Forks County Sheriff's Office in the amount of $69,565 to help reinforce our northern border. I am requesting the chair's signature for acceptance on that grant, and I'm open to any questions you have on that.
Any questions? Which one was it? I've got North Dakota Game and Fish.
It should be the next one in your pile.
Justice Assistant?
Can I see, which one did you have there? No, it must be the other one. It should be emergency services at the top. And then the first paragraph says that it's been awarded for $69,565.
So do you have anything on the Bureau of Justice Assistant?
Yes, that's the next one.
Next one?
Yep.
That might be Stone Garden there. Is it?
Huh?
That might be Stone Garden there.
Well, whatever, I've got it up here, so. And Haley's read it. So you've heard the request? We have a motion?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I would move the commission approves the grant application and puts in the chair's signature.
Okay.
Madam Chair, just to clarify, this is acceptance of the grant, not applying for the grant. And this one would require
I'm sorry.
acceptance on the 3rd page of this packet here, and it also needs special conditions as a supplemental page that would require the chair's initials as well. I can provide you with my copy if you'd like to look at it.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, do I need to amend that motion?
You would.
Except.
Nobody seconded it, so it dies, right?
You can amend it, yes. All right, thank you. So, Haley? Cindy's made a motion and she wants to amend it. We don't have a second on it. What do we need to do?
Well, I think any of the commissioners could either make motion or somebody could second her amended motion.
Or someone could what?
A commissioner could second her amended motion.
Okay, but the motion that we have out there now, does she amend that one? And then we have another commissioner that would second it?
Yes, we could do that, or her motion could die for a lack of a second, and then we could start with a new motion.
Okay, so do we have a second? Do we have a second? Do we have a second? Hearing none, the motion dies for lack of a second. So, did you want to make another motion? Ms. Peach?
Yes, I would move that we accept accept the grant with the chair's signature on the acceptance letter, and also provide, what is it, insurance and what other, Sheriff Snyder?
No, it was just initials on the special conditions page along with the acceptance letter.
Okay, so then we make sure that we meet the obligations of the acceptance letter.
Okay. For the motion, do we have a second?
I second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, motion carried. Okay,
Thank you. The third item, we've brought before the commission on 2 separate occasions. I believe it was the Department of Justice COVID emergency supplemental grant that the request was made to the commission that I be allowed to sign off on that grant and that it be applied for through the sheriff's office with the conditions that it is applied for, and the grant award would be applicable to the jail and juvenile detention as well. And we were awarded that grant within a couple weeks in the amount of $58,008. So those funds are available to the 3 agencies that I listed right now for, I believe it's through December 2021. So we did receive that grant and we're awarded it. Any questions on that grant or use of it or anything?
any comments? So this is just informational, is that correct? Okay. Good work.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. Thank you.
I have nothing further. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Finance and tax.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, I have the 2021 budget before you. I've got scanned in the levy calculation. Go through what we've discussed at our prior meetings and what's included in the budget. You can see on that sheet that I scanned in on page 84, the gross taxable value that we're using is $323,684,793. That is an estimate. It is 2.23% higher than the prior year. 1.5 is from new growth. If you scroll over, you will see the airport valuation, which is $61,865,693, and that is only a 1% increase for the airport evaluation. That comes from townships that levy for their own local airport, and it's not the Grand Forks Airport. The weed board valuation is everything outside the city of Grand Forks, and that's a 3% increase over the prior year. The general fund increased $168,707 $712 over last year. Let's roll back a little bit. It's getting kind of small, but so if you look at just the general fund, that's $170 or $68,000 more than it was in the prior year. We're allowed to levy 60 mills for the general fund. That's the limit. We are at, with our estimated valuation, 47.19 mils compared to 48.39 mils in the prior year. So we would drop 1.2 just in the general fund. So we have an additional $61,000 added for that Microsoft 365 that's included in the budget now. So if you choose to do the Microsoft Office, it would cost $100,000. You need $40,000 more in this budget. Is that something you want to consider? Because I didn't know about that until today. So you are not aware of it. You don't have to go that route. You could do the hybrid method, what he was talking about, or you could do nothing at all. And I recommend, if you decide not to do it, just to leave the $61,000 in there.
Yeah.
But if you want to include it or increase it to the 100, we should hopefully do that now, if that would be the desire of the commission.
Commissioners, any comments on that?
It's Commissioner Ross. I just think we should leave it at 61,000 for right now.
Yeah, here.
Commissioner Ross and Commissioner Knopf feel that we should just leave the 61,000 in the budget for now, and versus not including any funds, or versus including $100,000. So that way, if something comes up, I guess, in the future, this coming year in 2021, we technically would have $61,000 to address that.
This is Commissioner Falk. I agree. I don't want to, I think we're going to have to do something at some point, but I don't want to do it right now.
Okay, thank you.
I would agree with that as well.
And here.
All right, so Ms. Nelson then it'll stay in, because it's in her budget now, so there won't be any changes as a result of that.
Also included is a 3% step increase for all qualified employees on their seniority date, including the elected officials at 3% January 1, 2021. About $60,000 was added to the emergency management budget to increase a part-time position from 19 to 30 hours and add 3 additional radios. Capital improvements was decreased from $1 million to $750,000. The base retention line item in the Director of Administration's budget was removed. The election budget was decreased because it's a non-election year in 2021, but we always keep a budget in for the election just because there might be a special election. Revenues were about $66,000 less than 2020 budget. Interest income is less. Our interest rate has decreased from 2% to 0.25%, so from 2 to 1/4%. We no longer have work release, so we had to remove $60,000 for that. So very similar in revenue for the general fund. Over on the side, in the contracted services, and I can't get there. I can't show that to you because it's under the pictures. I've got it, but I was just going to show the rest of you. The contracted services are listed on that levy calculation that I scanned in. All contracted services were included at the same level as last year, other than the detox center was increased $1 $1,990 from $79,500 to $81,550. And the young professionals were included at $1,000, which is a $500 increase over last year. The health insurance increase range that we were given was anywhere from 2 to 10%. We included a 10% increase for 2021 based on the actual cost for 2019 increased by the amount of 18.75%, which was an increase for 2020. And then we added another 10% for 2021. If you recall, we budgeted for an increase of 25% in 2020. And so we had a difference of a 6.25 that we didn't use in 2020. And our actual costs were less than budgeted. So there was no effect on the 2021 budget for that 10% health insurance increase. The road fund increased about $200,000. You can see the mill levy there increased, make that a little bit larger so you can see it maybe. Scroll over here. So the road fund increased about $200,000 over last year. His highway distribution fund is going to be reduced by 18.75% or $666,000, and he will make up some of the projects in the road fund. A small portion of the project that he was going to do. You can see the contracted, no you can't, yes you can. Contracted services up in the corner there. And the emergency fund was included. You scroll down here to the emergency fund. We have $75,000 that we put in a budget request for, and that's 0.23 mils compared to 0.24 mils last year. You can levy 2 mils as long as the balance that you have does not exceed what 5 mils would generate. 5 mils would generate 1.6 million. We have almost 1.2 million. So that's what we're doing with the emergency fund. The public health budget was increased $18,000 over last year, and that was for salaries. And the preliminary budget increased, this final net levy increased $533,427 over last year, which is a 2% increase. And once you approve this preliminary budget, you can lower it, but you cannot increase it. And all preliminary budgets must be submitted to me by August 10th. And I must send out an estimated tax notice and public hearing notice by August 31st to all property owners that have value greater than $100. And if there are no questions, I request a motion to approve the 2021 preliminary budget as presented and set the budget hearing for September 15th, 2020.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Falk with a question.
Yeah.
We don't have to approve the preliminary budget by August 10th, so my question is, would it be prudent for us to wait for a while in case we want to make some changes? If we do it right now, we're locked in. You know, we in essence get penalized for getting our work done early. Am I wrong, Debbie?
Well, I guess I don't know that you would want to wait. It just gives me a little bit more time to start mill levy calculations. So we could wait 2 weeks if you want to. Typically, we do it before August, so you do have one more meeting to get it done. I don't know that we need to. I like the idea of being done 2 weeks earlier, just to allow me to get ready to send out those estimated tax bills.
Any other comments, thoughts? So what are the wishes of the board?
Madam Chair, I would make a motion that we approve the budget at this time and move forward.
Okay. Do we have a second on that?
I second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the proposed budget and move forward on that. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, motion carried. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so the next item then is Director of Administration.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. I realize I think I'm standing between all of you and dinner, so I'm going to be brief. The first thing I have is a proposal from Johnson Controls, and I've actually asked Mr. Grzeszewski to discuss this one with the board and make his kind of brief you on it and then make the recommendation. So, Bill, can I just turn it over to you to discuss this proposal?
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity. What this is a fairly extensive repair to the courthouse direct exchange cooling units on the rooftops. You have a total of 5 units up on the rooftop. One of them failed with a fairly significant repair and leaked all of its freon out of it when it was commissioned into cooling season, requiring 90 pounds of freon, a TXV valve replacement, and they found 3 other leaks within that repair that needed to be addressed to hopefully not revisit another freon leak down the road. The dryers were leaking at the sealing point on them, so while they had them apart, to replace the dryers, replace the dryer filters on them, replace that TXV valve, repair one cracked line, replaced an actuator on an economizer that was stripped out, replaced one economizer gear, and also replace a closure switch for the burner on one of the boilers on one of the combustion units in order to make it fire properly. So that total proposal for repair comes to $11,769, which all become necessary repairs to operate those units. This particular rooftop unit that failed is a 40-ton rooftop unit, which has just to give you a grand spectrum of this repair being a sizable repair, yes, but if you were to replace this unit with an R134 unit, Tier 14, which is all new requirements and replacement, if you did that, you'd be looking at about a $70,000 to $80,000 rooftop replacement, and that still, once again, is only one of 5 on the rooftop. This is a repair. No warranties, no anything implied to it other than to the workmanship that's performed. But this being done without having doing this repair, there's no air conditioning in 1/3 of the courthouse.
So the funding would have to come out of 2020 capital improvements, Madam Chair, as 16th, the board approved, I think it was 5 or 6 change orders to the parking ramp, totaling $90,330. However, I had received 2 at the very last minute, and I had forgotten to send those to Debbie. So Debbie only received the first few originals. And so when you approved those change orders, the amount you approved actually fell short. It didn't include those 2 last minute change orders that you asked me to include. So even though the board approved all the change orders, the amount is incorrect. And again, that's my fault, as I forgot to send those last 2 to Debbie for her to include the total amount that is. So I'm asking that the board would change that amount from $64,240 to add another $26,090, and that would bring the correct total to $90,330. Did I say that right, Debbie?
Yes, you did.
Okay, good. And again, those would of course come out of 2020 capital improvements, hoping that there's some left.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, I did look at where we would be at. And if they improve this 26,000 and that additional 6,000 that will come next, we'd be at about 270. And then we just had approved almost 12,000, wasn't it? So, yeah, 258.
So you've heard Mr. Ford's request. What are the?
This is Commissioner Falk, moves to approve the additional $26,090 in change orders.
I second that motion.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, motion carried.
Thank you. Last thing is, you in that email you saw AE2S requesting another contract amendment. In the note, I explained what happened. They had an accounting error, and they did not include $6,000 for additional work that was done. And so when they sent over the total of the contract amendment, it wasn't accurate. So they actually, it was Debbie that caught it as well. So kudos to Debbie. So Debbie and I reached out to AE2S, trying to figure out why we had different numbers on our end and their end, and it was them that caught their own accounting error. So they're sending over and asking for another contract amendment, and this should rectify the situation. So this new contract amendment would ask for an additional $6,000 to cover really architecture and engineering drawings and designs that went into the blueprint for ICS's work with the parking ramp. And so I'd be asking for chair's signature, for board approval and chair's signature on that second amendment with the additional $6,000.
Okay, you've heard the request. Do you have any questions? Hearing none, with some.
Madam Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
I would move approval of that motion.
The $6,000.
Yes.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve then the $6,000 contract amendment with AE2S. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Okay, and so then, State's Attorney, do you have anything for us?
Madam Chair, I do not have anything for the board's consideration this week. Thank you.
Did you have a baby there that you wanted to show us?
No, not with me.
Oh, I thought I heard a baby. So, okay. How about committee reports? Commissioner Ross?
Nothing to report at this time.
Okay, Commissioner Peach?
I have the Board of Health meeting coming up this Thursday, and Red River Regional Council has just made an announcement that there will be an additional, I believe, $5 million for business assistance grants available to small businesses. I will forward that information out to you. It has to be approved yet, I believe, at the federal and state level, but it will go through, and that will help the 4 counties within our region.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Engen? Mr. Engen?
Oh, I'm awake here, I just didn't hear it. Nothing except the budget committee meetings that we've had, and there will be an EDC meeting by Zoom next week. Well, actually, it's gonna be in person, but I don't think I'll be there.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Fall?
Yes, we had a brick meeting this morning, which was well attended by everyone, including new Mayor Boczynski, so that was a positive. Other than that, nothing else.
Thank you, and I have nothing to report. Okay, and so for unfinished business, we have nothing. And 16 correspondence, we have a letter from North Dakota DOT relating to the Manville sidewalk system. And just to let us know that, thank us for submitting our project for consideration. And the project was prioritized, but there were no funds available. So anyhow, just telling us that we can resubmit, or there's a new time frame for applications for 2023 projects. So, and then the second one is North Dakota Department of Transportation Smart Restart Program. And this is just basically a heads up from DOT with respect to services that they have provided and how they've provided them through the COVID experience. So that's about all. Anything else to come before the commission? Hearing none, may I have a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries. Go forward, be safe.